Hello, my name is Salma and welcome to my channel. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can contact me at tattoosandtarot@gmail.com, or you can look up my personal website, which is tattoosandtarot.com, and you can see what other services I have to offer with regard to readings. In any case, I hope you enjoy your monthly Teroscope reading, and any questions that you have, feel free to message me. All right, have a good one. Bye. Hey Scorpio, here is your July reading for 2017. Before I started the video, I was trying to sit and just ask for any messages related to Scorpio to come through for this month, and I was having a difficult time sort of receiving some stuff. I think what kind of came up was confusion. I want to say confused, but I think the most telling thing was that there was, I feel like the reason why it was a little difficult for me to pick up anything or to really receive anything was there's this sense of guardedness. There's this sense of guardedness, at the same time this desire to want to open up and not really being so sure, like, where is this guardedness coming from? Like, why do I feel so guarded? Why do I feel so, closed off, yet wanting to connect and wanting to open up in a sense? That's kind of what came up. Sorry. Yeah, like the sense of wanting to, looking out for something, but not necessarily knowing what you're looking for, or waiting for, but knowing that you're waiting for something. Knowing that there is something out there. And I'll get into what's happening astrologically in a minute. Something's telling me to get the cards down now. Scorpio. Scorpio, no one ever sees y'all sweat. No one can ever see a Scorpio. No one ever sees you. Yeah. No one ever sees. It's like you've got your emotions. You've got your emotions. Your emotional life is contained in this cup, this chalice here, and you keep a close eye on it so that nobody else can see it. It's a slip of the hand, more so. No one ever sees it, but I have a feeling y'all might get caught sweating a little bit. I read this as an internal battle. An internal battle over beliefs, over what you previously believed to be true. Let's see. Yeah, there's something that you're trying to hold on to or keep guarded about. But at the same time, there's also this desire to expand. But it's almost as if like you're in a deadlock and can't really do it. And since I'm seeing a lot of wands, yeah, more wands. You got the Fool. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's. Yeah. you guys are popping up everywhere. Well, I'll pull one more. Pull one more. It's been an interesting month for a lot of signs. I mean, every month is an interesting month, right? Every month there's new things happening for each sign, but some signs more than others. I think this might be a month for you all. You know what? I don't think another card wants to come out, so I'm just gonna. If I want to pull another card, I will. So what's happening in the Scorpio astrological sky? So one of the aspects that I saw and read about as well is Mars combusts the sun in your 9th house. So, what does it mean when a planet is combusts the sun? And it's a little bit different than a conjunction, whereas a conjunction is when, two planets are in the same house or same sign in someone's chart. And, there is this blending of energies. There is this, blending of, the properties or energies or, aspects of those two planets kind of meld together within that specific area or house or sign, right? So, for instance, Mars conjunct, a moon could be that, your willpower, like the things that you want to do, and your emotional life are very much blended together, meaning that your emotional life is very much, drives and propels how your motivation and vice versa, right? So that's one small example. And if anybody has any other better examples than that, they want to leave comments below, go right ahead. But, when a planet is combust, and usually this happens, with the sun, a planet is combust the sun. When a planet is, again, in the same house or sign as the sun, and it's so close to the sun, and different astrologers have different, limits for when a planet is combust, right? And there was this one astrologer that I was reading about, and he stated that a planet is, in his own studies, and, that a planet is combust and I'll leave his information below because he's actually a really great astrologer. And a planet is combust the sun at 6.20 degrees, from the sun. So basically, combust is when a planet is really close to the sun, and it gets so close to the sun that it gets burnt up by the sun, and where that planet basically loses its power and is kind of absorbed by the sun, and that planet loses its ability to take action in a chart or to form within a chart, So for you have Mars combust the sun happening this month in your 9th house. And basically what that means is that, Mars is the energy and the power of Mars is literally being disintegrated and burned up and absorbed by the sun. So and Mars represents our motivation, our willpower, how we walk into things in kind of a very fierce kind of way, being able to complete things, being able to carry things out, anger issues. And so when Mars is being absorbed or Mars is being burnt up by the sun, we're losing the power of Mars in that certain area of the chart, right? So you're losing your willpower, you're losing your motivation, you're losing your sense of, your concrete sense of knowing, your ability to complete tasks, your ability to commit to, physical action, anger issues might come up. You might be faced with anger. And this is all happening in your ninth house, right? And the ninth house being the house of expansion, higher learning, spirituality, spiritual practice, higher understanding, philosophy. So, and Scorpio, a lot of Scorpios that I know in my life are, very committed. And, you meet people who have spiritual practice in their life, right? Or like are committed to wanting to live the spiritual way, but their whole life, it's compartmentalized into one area of life, and a lot of the Scorpios that I know, right, y'all get really deep and y'all get really intense with things to the point where it's consuming, right? Like Pluto is a consumer. Pluto wants to consume, Pluto wants to completely like encase and consume and then shake up and destroy, right? And so, a lot of Scorpios that I've met, and because, of my interests, I tend to, meet and attract other people who are also interested in spiritual practice and spirituality and things of that nature. And the Scorpios that I meet, it is their life. It is like their whole entire, lifestyle and being, and everything is deduced down to, this symbolism, this meaning, this spiritual practice. Like, you guys get very deep with it. And so to see Mars combust the sun in the ninth house, or the sun combust Mars in the ninth house, it's, it's a little bit concerning. And, what it translates to me as somebody who, likes to read the sky as, a loss of motivation, a loss of willpower, even a loss of understanding, right? Like your understanding of your spiritual practice, your spiritual philosophy, what the knowledge the spiritual knowledge that you have, expansion, right? So maybe there is, some issues concerning like completely reevaluating and a loss of faith in and the spiritual practice that was once so like, you weren't, so very tight, you were very tight-fisted with. So that's one thing that, comes to mind. Also maybe anger issues, regarding spiritual practice, and feeling as though there might have been a practice that was so, and this is all also happening in Cancer, right? And, Cancer being a watery, it's a water sign, and Mars being a fire sign, that Mars not only being combusted by the sun, but is also being like simultaneously having water thrown on it by Cancer, right? So like Mars is depressed, as they, so to speak, is, in Cancer, meaning it's not in a sign, it's not in a fire sign, it's not an air sign, it's not in a sign where it feels comfortable, where it's, growing and feels that it can act, right? It's in water, it's being slowed down. Mars wants to move fast, and Cancer is this body of water, and it's Cancer can be a little bit withdrawn. Cancer is about the inner emotional world. Cancer is about, listening to intuitive feelings rather than just listening to action and taking action, right? So Mars is also in sense, not in detriment, but depressed in Cancer, because it's not able to just kind of, it's not in this fire, it's not in its comfortable fiery atmosphere. Cancer's also throwing water on Mars. So, definitely being mindful of like where in the ninth house regarding spirituality, philosophy, expansion, growth, travel, maybe you had travel plans that aren't gonna really pan out, or maybe you're being prompted to travel whereas you wanted to stay put somewhere for a little bit longer. So, just thinking about where your ninth house activity and what like how you have maybe lost motivation in areas regarding the ninth house. And then also how Cancer is kind of like dimming the fieriness, the fiery energy, the quick to act, the compulsiveness of Mars, which is a go-get-em kind of planet. And Cancer is more of a, I'm going to kind of sit here and just kind of think about some things, and I like my inner world, and going outside is a little bit kind of too much for me right now, whereas Mars is like, we live out, we live outside, you know? We live outside the shell. So that was kind of what came up for me as I looked at the Scorpio sky for this month of July. And so now I'm going to get into the tarot card reading portion of your video. So, like I said before, as I was pulling the cards, you know, we have the Three of Wands. The Three of Wands, you know, this for me is also a very kind of Sagittarian card because it's the card of expansion. Like, how can I grow? How can I expand? Messages coming in, like three, right? Being three, three, right? The third house, the house of communication, house of messages, house of knowledge, house of writing, house of things being brought back to us, in a intellect, like in an intellectual kind of way. So I definitely, this was the first card that came out, right? So this, you know, kind of to me reads as not like the general or main energy, but yeah, the general or main energy. I'm trying to think of like, kind of like a theme that's going on for you all this month, right? And Three of Wands, you know, you have this figure here that has these three wands, and he's only holding one in his hand. The other two stand behind him, but he hasn't really forgotten about them, right? But he's looking out with this one wand and wondering, you know, there are ships here in the water. You know, when are these ships going to sail in? What messages do they have to bring back for me? And I get the feeling that he sent these ships out, right? These ships were sent out by him, and he's waiting for them to kind of return, like the boomerang effect, right? But it's a card of waiting. It's a card of expansion, and I see it sort of as you know, waiting for the expansion, waiting for new growth, waiting for new ideas to come in, waiting for new divine inspiration, right? This is wands, so wands for me represent spirit, represent spiritual energy, right? Like waiting for new downloads to come in. Like maybe there has been a slowdown in, you know, maybe there's been a slowdown in your psychic ability. Maybe there's been a blockage in your intuition or in your psychic ability, and you're just kind of waiting for the messages to start receiving the messages again, to start receiving the downloads. And you're holding on to your previous spiritual messages. You're holding on to your previous downloads, and you're just like, yeah, like this is, you know, I have the spiritual power, and I'm waiting, you know, and there's been a blockage, and I'm waiting to see what, you know, what spirit, what God, what the universe needs for me to receive next or do next with my spiritual power. And this Queen of Cups, usually this Queen of Cups for me is a very, you know, she's very, you know, she's looking at her emotions, right? The cups representing how we hold our emotions, what's in that cup, right? And, you know, I usually observe this card as like someone who is definitely feeling secure or feeling as though they're becoming familiar with their emotions and understanding their triggers, understanding what makes them tick, becoming more emotionally familiar with themselves. And the energy that I'm kind of picking up is that I'm picking up all of that, but I'm also picking up a nervousness of this queen kind of looking at this cup like, don't leave my sight, don't go anywhere, you're not to, as a, you know, it's like, it's, you know, when you're watching something nervously to make sure that you don't lose it, you know, something bad doesn't happen. And so that's why I kind of said in the beginning of the reading, like, not wanting people to see you sweat, not wanting people to, it's like, you know, being seen previously as like, the blockages, whatever blockages may be present for you all, it's definitely affecting your sense of self. It's definitely affecting maybe your sense of your self-esteem, maybe, your ability, your psychic ability, your intuitive ability was very much a part of your identity and how you felt about yourself. And, you've been experiencing some blockages in that area. You've been experiencing a loss of motivation with spiritual practice, right? Going back to the ninth house issues that are happening between Mars and the Sun in your chart. And, that in wanting to kind of not let anybody see you sweat, like not let anybody see that you feel as though you're losing control of something that you felt you had a lot of control over before, right? Like this guy in the Three of Wands, he doesn't have a lot of control over whether these ships come back in or not. He just kind of has to wait and see what happens. And, that waiting, that emotional, the nervousness that I'm feeling from this Queen of Cups, creating this internal battle within yourself, creating creating an internal battle within yourself, creating a sense of disharmony between yourself, between yourself, your ego, your spirit self, your heart, your mind, right? Like all of these aspects of yourself are in argument with one another, and they're all trying to, and each one is trying to see who can get on top, right? Like each one is trying to see, the next card in the suit of wands after the Five of Wands is the Six of Wands, the card of victory. Like who's going to be the victor? Who's going to be victorious, right? In this, and who's going to be victorious in this battle? Who's going to hold on? Who's going to stand their ground and hold on? And I also definitely see this Four of Pentacles as, maybe needing to let go a little bit of that identity of who, right? Like letting go of that identity of I know in the beginning I mentioned that, representing, or something about having, maybe your psychic ability or your intuitive ability feels blocked, and that's affecting like your self-esteem and your emotional well-being and your sense of being able to kind of hold it together, right? And your sense of self, and maybe having to let go of that identity, that ability. And it doesn't just have to be like your psychic ability, right? Like being, who you think you are, or like you're being your psychic ability doesn't have to be the only aspect of who, like of what builds you up or what makes you feel whole. Like it can be other parts of yourself that make you feel whole. So the Four of Pentacles being a card where you need to let go of a previous idea of who you think you are. You need to let go of a previous idea of what you think is going to make you feel complete. Because this guy, he's got all four of these pentacles, but he can't go anywhere. He can't move. He can't stand up. He can't do anything. If he stands up, this one falls off of his head. If he grabs the one on top of his head, he's going to drop this one, and so forth, right? So needing to make room for, and sorry if I'm a little scattered, somebody just walked in, but needing to create a new idea of needing to let go of old ideas that no longer work regarding what you identify with. And whether that identity is based in like, I'm a psychic, or I'm an intuitive, or I'm a mother, or I'm, an artist, or I'm this, or I'm that, like whatever, I'm a teacher, right? Like thinking of ninth house issues, I'm a spiritual master, like whatever you've attached to your identity, there's some blockages to that this month, and it's creating some conflict. but it's only conflict because you're not letting go. And I see you getting through it. I see you definitely moving through it. I see you picking up your pieces, picking up your wands, picking up your building blocks. And yes, there is some bruising to the ego. There is some bruising to the sense of self. There is some bruising to, what we think, to what you hold true about your identity, right? But the Nine of Wands, this is a person that has perseverance and keeps going. This is a person that doesn't give up. It doesn't stop doing what they're doing. This is a person who, regardless of the bandages and the scars and the, regardless of how tired and, messed up he looks, he's still going to keep going. He set his wands back up, and he's almost there. He's almost to completion. He needs one more wand and he's complete. The cycle is complete, right? And sometimes when we're so close to completing the cycle and moving through this difficult energy, right? Sometimes we're so close, and all we want to do is just kind of like be like, no, I'm okay. I'm going to stop right here. But I see, y'all are Scorpios. Y'all don't give up very easily, and y'all don't give up very easily, and so you're gonna keep it moving. Yeah, I think there's definitely keeping it. Well, it kind of went like this, keeping it moving. The Fool, and the Fool to me is not only a new beginning, but it's this restoration in sense and faith. It's this restoration in whatever spiritual practice or spiritual beliefs that one may hold, right? It's you have this figure here, and he doesn't have very much. He doesn't carry very much with him. He has very little. And he's about to walk off the edge of a cliff, but he's looking up. And he's looking up, and he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to keep going. And it's like the sun to me represents the divine that will always, the sun and this dog, right, this companion, right, recognition that the divine is not only like, the divine is not only something that we kind of look up into the sky and we pray and we see like, oh yes, God or goddess or, whatever spiritual higher power you may believe in, right? But that the spirit is always with us in our journey, whether we see it or not, whether we're experiencing blockages or not, we're always on this journey, and we don't need very much. But I definitely see, a leap of faith into doing something new, doing something differently, recommitting to spiritual practice, recommitting to belief in your abilities. And it's all mental. It's all mental blockages. It's all just, and it's just stuff that you've been carrying with you, and it's just stuff that you have to let go of. And, I've kind of been following in the previous couple of months, like all the different signs and kind of what everybody's going through. And, there might be some blockages. There might have been some having to rethink and leave behind self-defeating thought patterns. And I definitely see this card as you leaving behind self-defeating thought patterns with regard to spiritual practice and your spiritual, intuitive, psychic abilities, and just really deciding that you're no longer, you're leaving this energy behind, right? Like these energies are connected in some way, and that as long as you stay here, and as long as you are in this place of withholding and not allowing a different perspective, right? Like not being able to have a different perspective of things. You're not going to allow, the Two of Cups for me is not just about, it's not just about romantic love coming in, right? Like this is Archangel Raphael. I don't know the exact name for it, right? But it's the universal, maybe not universal, but it's a well-known medical symbol. I can't think of the name for it. So it's like, and healing is happening, right? Like there's an Archangel Raphael being the archangel of healing, right? And like the patron angel, or, the protector of all healers and those who work in healing professions, and those who want to do healing work and energy work. Like that's our guide. Like the Archangel Raphael is our guide. And so this union between these two, this feminine and this masculine energy, right? And it doesn't just have to be an actual physical feminine person and an actual physical masculine person. It could be the feminine and masculine energies within us that receive healing and are able to kind of come together and are able to flow and be in harmony with one another. This could also represent, a relationship that is ordained in the sense that the two of you come together to actually instill and spread healing into the world, healing energy. Like both of you are healers, right? And Archangel Raphael needs both of you to come together in order to, send your healing out into the world together. But there has to be a removal or a leaving behind of old self-defeating, and I have a feeling that staying here in this energy of waiting and kind of staying in this energy of waiting and staying in this energy, this keeps you in the block. This keeps you in the blockage. This keeps you in the blockage of whatever it is that you're not, whatever it is that's kind of holding you back. And moving into the Six of Swords, being able to move past like self-defeating beliefs, moving away from tumultuous times, moving away from parts or times in your life that have been difficult, but a lot of it has been in the mind. A lot of it only comes from you not believing that you can do it, and be mindful of how you judge others. I just heard that. Be mindful of how you judge others. A lot of the Scorpio folks that I know and the friends that I have a habit of projecting whatever perceived weakness they feel within themselves, and then, projecting that out a little bit. And that's just, the Scorpios that I know. I'm not saying that in a general sense. That's just, from my experience. Yeah. So there is healing. There is healing to be done. And, this card could represent doing healing within a partnership, right? Like the healing occurs between, like the partnership is the process through which the healing happens, or the partnership, the coming together of the two, then the healing work begins outside, externally, beyond both of you. But first and foremost, there needs to be a walking away from previous mindsets, like I said before. Let me pull an outcome card. That reading felt pretty straightforward. If it didn't resonate with you, there are lots of other readings on YouTube. If it did resonate with you, great. I'm glad. Outcome for Scorpio, July 2017. Yeah. So all of that, whatever blockages you're experiencing, especially regarding ninth house, concerns, ninth house areas, spirituality, higher education, expansion, travel, whatever blockages you're experiencing in those areas, there'll be a breakthrough. There'll be a breakthrough, and there will be movement. There will be movement. It's just that this period is asking you. This period of time is this blockage. What you're experiencing as a blockage is really asking you to recognize, like, how do I keep myself in my own holding patterns regarding these areas, and like, how is this waiting? How is this waiting kind of self-defeating, right? Like, how do I end up here when I do this? When I'm just like stuck in this blockage and I'm not letting go, right? Of when I'm so attached to an idea of how things used to be, right? I'm looking back, I'm not looking forward, and I'm holding on to what's behind me, and I can't see beyond that. And, you know, how does that then end me up here? Which I'll get through, but I'm going to be hurt, and I'm going to kind of be tired, right? I'll get through it. I always do. I always get through it, and I need to move through it. But yeah, you know, definitely willpower regarding a loss of the loss of motivation in spirituality, spiritual practice, spiritual beliefs, travel, all of those are, you know, it'll pass, and there will be new action, new movement, new motivation, you know, a sense of newness. It's almost like also, you know, when the sun combusts a planet, it's also like the death and the rebirth of that planet. So maybe going through all of this, and, you know, having to reevaluate how I do ninth house activities. How do I go about doing and carrying out ninth house activities? And how does that process need to die and be reborn, right? How does that process need to be let go of? How do I need to let go of how I used to do things regarding my ninth house? Like, how, you know, what new territory do I need to step into in order for me to really receive healing in this area, or to do the healing work that I really want to do, or to enter into that relationship that I know is in my highest good, right? It'll come through, you know. Y'all all, and, you know, eight of wands, y'all, eighth house, right? Like, it's just eights are comfortable numbers for y'all. Being ruled by the eighth house, which is transformation, death, rebirth, re-death, like, the destroyer, right? Always destroying and building things back up, but destroying things, and, you know, and not just aimlessly going around destroying things because, you know, there's, you know, ego attached, right? To, like, oh, I go around and I destroy things and I am, you know, the great Scorpio. But it's like more so in a sense of I break down the things that don't serve me, and I get rid of them, and I do it in a way that is very effective, and I know how to move through this process. I'm okay with being uncomfortable, you know. I'm okay with being. I have a Scorpio. I knew this Scorpio woman, and she was always talking about how she was so used to being so uncomfortable because she was constantly breaking down and tearing apart aspects of herself, and that she needed to actually maybe have a little bit more of this, a little bit more, you know, that maybe that process of constantly tearing yourself down or tearing others down isn't really working for you anymore, and you just constantly find yourself in conflict, not only with yourself, but with others around you who, you know, don't necessarily want to be broken down in that way all the time. Don't always want to feel like, you know, oh, here comes the Scorpio coming to destroy me, or, you know, read me my fate, or, you know, sometimes that's not always the most helpful or beneficial, you know, thing to do. So here, I'll show you your cards. You had some good cards. Very straightforward. You know, the Fool was the biggest. You know, that was your major theme. New beginnings. There needs to be a little bit of a renewed faith. And maybe walking this path with a little bit more joy, you know? Why so serious? Is what I just heard. But in any case, that's your reading. I hope you all enjoyed. And once again, if it didn't resonate with you, there are lots of other readings on YouTube. Sometimes I have to go through different readings to find one that really speaks to me. And it's not the reader's fault. It's not the card's fault. That's just the energies that are being picked up on by that certain person. And if the reading did resonate with you, great. Thank you, and feel free to leave a comment below. And if you want a personal reading, you can contact me at tattoosandtarot@gmail.com, or you can go to my personal website, which is tattoosandtarot.com, and I'll leave that below in the description box. And if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to message me, and I hope you enjoy your month, Scorpio. Bye.